My name is Rowan Blake. I am 34 years old. I knew it would be awkward, but I didn't think it would feel like walking straight into a wall. It was just family brunch. That's what the text had said. Family brunch, 11 a.m., everyone invited. Nothing fancy, no special occasion, no caveats, just brunch. I parked a little down the street because the driveway was already full. My son hopped out first, clutching the small Lego figure he took everywhere, and my daughter slid her hand into mine, pressing in close the way she always did when she was somewhere new. "Are we late?" my son asked. "A little," I said, trying to sound light. Fashionably. I pushed the front door open and stepped into the dining room like I was stepping onto a stage I hadn't rehearsed for. Everyone was already seated around the long table, my dad at the head, my mom to his right, my brother Austin and his fiancée across from them, a couple of cousins at the far end. Plates full, glasses halfway empty, laughter already in the air. The laughter stopped when they saw me. My dad looked up from his plate, fork hovering in midair, eyes sliding over me. Then my kids, like we were an unexpected bill he'd forgotten to pay, and then he said it. This day was going fine until now. My daughter's grip on my hand tightened. My son stopped just inside the doorway, the Lego figure dangling forgotten at his side. For a second, the whole room froze like someone had pressed pause. No one said anything. Austin didn't look at me. He was busy topping off his mimosa, jaw working like he'd heard something mildly inconvenient, not cruel. His fiancée had her lips pressed together in a tiny, amused smirk, like this was entertainment. My mom's eyes flickered between me and my dad, an apology on her face, a silent, desperate, "Please don't start," in the way her fingers kept twisting her napkin. The air felt thick, heavy, too hot. My son tugged on my sleeve. His voice was quiet, but I swear it sounded louder than anything else in the room. "Are we not wanted?" That was it. No screaming, no thrown plates, just that one small question from a 7-year-old boy trying to understand why his presence could ruin a day. I bent down, kissed his forehead, and smoothed his hair back. "Come on," I said softly. "Let's go." I didn't look at my dad. I didn't look at Austin. I didn't wait to see if anyone would stop me, or apologize, or pretend they hadn't heard what they'd just heard. I just turned around, my daughter still holding my hand, my son walking close at my side, and walked out. No one followed. Back in the car, I buckled them in, my hands steady in a way my chest was not. I handed them the granola bars I kept in the glove box for emergencies. I guess that's what this was, just not the kind I'd planned for. They chewed quietly in the back seat, trading crumbs and little comments about the flavor. Kids are resilient like that. They feel it, the tension, the hurt, but they also know how to return to the small, solid things in front of them. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel surprised. I felt tired, bone-deep tired. Tired of being the one who was supposed to be the bigger person, the understanding one, the dependable one, the one who wrote the checks. That's the part no one at that table wanted to talk about. Austin's wedding. It was 3 months away and I was covering at least half of it. Actually, more than half, if we were being honest. I'd paid the deposit on the lakefront venue he absolutely had to have because the photos would be perfect for the gram. I'd covered the cake from that pretentious bakery 3 states away because his fiancée refused to settle for something local. I'd put money down for the live band Austin just had to have because a DJ was too cheap. Thousands. I'd already spent thousands. I told myself I was doing something kind, that I wanted to help, that it was a way to show I supported them, even if they'd never really supported me. But underneath all that, there was another truth I tried not to look at too closely. I thought maybe, just maybe, it would fix something. Maybe my dad would look at me differently, not as the daughter who got pregnant too young and made things difficult for the family, but as someone successful enough to carry other people's dreams. Maybe Austin would see me as more than background noise, more than the sister who always figured it out somehow. I thought paying for his wedding might finally buy me a seat at the table I'd just walked away from. That night, after the kids had showered and fallen into bed, smelling like soap and sleep, the house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of a car on the street. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone in front of me. The family group chat was still open from earlier. My mom had sent a picture before I'd arrived. Everyone at the brunch table smiling, plates stacked with food, champagne flutes lined up like glass soldiers. A perfect little scene. I wasn't in it. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I started typing. Just to be clear, that comment this morning was completely out of line. You don't get to insult me in front of my children, not after everything I've done for this family. You've made it very clear where we stand. I paused, reading it back. My fingers hovered over the screen. Then I kept going. Austin, I wish you the best with your wedding, but I won't be contributing any further. The venue balance, the band, the cake, you'll need to figure it out without me. I'm stepping back. My thumb hovered over send for a heartbeat that felt like forever. Then I hit it. The message went through. That little whoosh sound suddenly sounding louder than anything in the room. For 5 minutes, the chat stayed dead. No dots, no responses, just silence. And then, like I knew it would, it started. Austin, are you serious right now? Austin, you can't just bail like this. Austin, we literally can't rebook everything. Do you know how much stress we're under? You're making this all about you. He didn't ask what my dad had said. He didn't ask how the kids were. He didn't ask why I'd finally snapped. He just went straight to panic and blame. Then my dad. A long message, the kind he loved to send when he wanted to sound reasonable while twisting the knife. It started with, "You always have a way of making everything about you," and ended with, "This family bends over backwards for you, and it's still not enough." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so far from the truth that laughter was the only thing I had left between me and rage. That man hadn't lifted a finger for me in years. He hadn't helped when my first husband walked out. He hadn't shown up when my daughter was in the hospital with pneumonia. He hadn't even sent a card when I finally got my degree while working nights and raising 2 kids alone. But somehow, he was the victim, because I decided I was done bankrolling a wedding for people who couldn't stand the sight of me walking into a room. Austin's fiancé chimed in. "This is really unfair, Rowan. We thought you were doing this because you wanted to." I stared at her message for a long second, thumb hovering over the keyboard, every part of me wanting to type something that would scorch the earth. Before I could, another notification popped up, from my mom. I understand. Just 2 words. No emojis, no elaboration. But from her, it felt like a crack in the wall. She'd been holding up for years. I didn't reply to any of them. I turned my phone face down on the table, turned off the lights, and went to bed. I knew this wasn't over, not even close. Austin had never been told no in his life. My dad had never faced a line he couldn't guilt someone into crossing. For the first time, I had drawn one. And I had no intention of stepping back over it. The next morning, my phone was already vibrating before the sun finished rising. 16 notifications. The family group chat. Separate text, missed calls, stacked on top of each other like falling dominoes. My kids were still asleep, their bedroom doors closed, soft breathing drifting into the hallway. For a moment, I just sat on the edge of my bed and watched the screen light up over and over again. Austin was first, always first. "Rowan, what is wrong with you? We can't rebook anything. You're seriously bailing now? Do you understand how much work this creates? You're making this all about yourself." Every line sounded exactly like him. Panic dressed as entitlement. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask if the kids were okay. He didn't even ask why I had left brunch with tears unshed behind my eyes. He just saw the hole in his budget and noticed his safety net had been cut. Then my dad joined in. "You're overreacting. You always do this. One small comment and you take it as an attack. This family bends over backward for you and it's still not enough." I stared at that message for a full minute. Bent over backward? This man had not bent for me a day in his life. Not when my son was born and I spent nights awake alone. Not when my daughter had pneumonia and I slept on a hospital cot for 3 nights straight. Not when I put myself through school in between double shifts. He had been a spectator, a critic, a judge, but never support. And yet here he was, playing the martyr so well he almost believed himself. I didn't respond. Instead, I got up, packed the kids' lunches, woke them gently, and started the day like any other. But beneath the mundane motions, something sharp and cold had settled into place. I was done being their crutch. When the kids were finally out the door, I sat at my desk, stared at the list I wrote the night before, venue, cake, band, and opened my laptop. Time to pull every plug. The first call was the venue. The lakefront estate Austin had insisted on because a backyard wedding isn't aesthetic enough. The coordinator answered with a chipper voice that softened when she recognized my name. "Oh, hi, Rowan. Everything okay?" "Actually," I said, "I need to cancel the reservation." There was a pause, the clicking of keys, a small intake of breath. "You're still within the refund window," she said. "We can return the full deposit." Relief. Not emotional relief. Strategic relief. One big knot untied. Next was the bakery. the 4-tier almond buttercream cake with edible flowers from out of state. The woman on the phone sounded annoyed at first, but when she realized nothing had been made yet, her tone shifted. "We can refund all but the design fee." I told her that was fine. Honestly, I would have paid twice that just to close the book on it. The band was the only headache. Their manager tried to tell me they'd blocked out the date. I explained calmly that the rehearsal hadn't started yet and that the contract allowed for cancellation without extra charges. "You really want to back out?" the booking agent asked skeptically. "I really do." By 2 p.m., every vendor contract had been unwound. Every dollar I had sunk into the wedding was crawling its way back to me. A strange, quiet weight lifted from my chest. I took the kids on a walk afterward. My daughter collected fallen leaves, bright red and gold, turning them into treasures. My son asked if we were still going to Uncle Austin's wedding. I told him simply, no. He thought for a moment, then nodded. "Good," he said. "I don't want to go where people don't like us." That hit harder than anything my family had said in the group chat. Kids don't lie. They don't negotiate. They just see things as they are. Back home, the notifications had multiplied again. I ignored them while the kids drew pictures at the table. When they were busy coloring dragons and unicorns, I finally opened the family chat. No preamble this time. Venue canceled, cake refunded, band dropped. "You'll need to replace all of it. My financial involvement is over." I hit send, set the phone down, waited. It took less than 2 minutes. Austin. "You're insane." Austin. "You're sabotaging the wedding." Austin. "You're actually trying to ruin this." His fiancée. "We trusted you. This is cruel." Then my dad. "This is punishment. You're tearing the family apart." My mother didn't say anything in the chat. Not immediately. But a few minutes later, she texted me privately. "You did the right thing for yourself and your kids. I'm sorry you had to do it alone." I stared at those words until my vision blurred. Not from tears. Those had been pressed down too long. But from something quieter. Something like recognition. Or maybe loss. I wasn't sure. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Not because I doubted myself, but because I knew this was just the first domino. Austin had never been told no. My dad had never been denied access to anything he wanted. They were going to push back. They were going to escalate. And I wasn't the same Rowan who used to fold under the weight of family expectations. I'd drawn a line. They were about to find out I meant it. That night, after the kids fell asleep and the house finally settled into that fragile hush, I stood at the kitchen sink rinsing dishes and trying to steady my thoughts. The moonlight came through the window in slices, cutting across the countertop like pale ribbons. My phone buzzed again and again on the table behind me. Austin's meltdown, my dad's scolding paragraphs, passive-aggressive emojis from the fiancé, but I let it buzz until the battery dipped to red. When silence finally won, I allowed myself one deep breath. And then, at 6:12 a.m. the next morning, my phone lit up with a name that made my heart stutter. Call from Jace. My husband. My husband who was supposed to still be deployed for another 3 weeks. My husband who had been sending me short, exhausted text messages about sandstorms and broken generators, and how much he missed the kids' voices. I answered before the second ring. The first thing I heard was his inhale. Sharp, bright, like he was breathing real air for the first time in months. "Rowan," he said, and everything inside me cracked open. He was back. He was here. He was coming home early. He didn't give me details. He couldn't. But he said enough for me to know he would be stateside within hours. "I'll explain the rest in person," he said. "Just, can you pick me up? Don't tell anyone I'm back yet. Let me see you first." When he walked toward me outside the base, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, uniform creased from 12 hours of travel, my whole chest tightened like someone finally let me inhale after months of holding my breath. I ran to him, and when his arms wrapped around me, the weight of the brunch, the insults, the group chat, the years of being the designated doormat, all of it hit me at once. I didn't cry at brunch. I didn't cry afterward. But there, pressed against the chest of the man who had been loving me from thousands of miles away, I broke. He held me until my body stopped shaking. In the car, he listened. Really listened. I told him everything. I didn't sugarcoat a single piece. The brunch, my dad's comment, our son's question, the years of paying for everyone else's needs, the wedding I was bankrolling to maybe earn a scrap of respect, the group chat's explosion, my cancellation of everything, my dad's visit, mom's confession, the silence, the tension, the fear, the anger. And then I told him something I didn't even realize I'd been thinking, They acted like I'm alone, I whispered, like I have no one. His jaw clenched. They won't think that for long, he said. When we pulled into our driveway, he kissed my forehead, helped me carry his things inside, and greeted the kids with a softness that made me feel like something solid had finally returned to our lives. By lunchtime, it felt like he'd never left. The kids clung to him, telling him everything he'd missed: soccer games, loose teeth, drawings on the fridge. The sound of their laughter filled the house like warm air. And the entire time, he didn't once mention my family. He didn't have to. He was waiting, letting me choose the moment the truth would land. I kept quiet for 3 days. Let Austin and my dad twist themselves into knots. Let the group chat melt down on its own. Let the silence thicken until it felt like fog. Austin tried the venue behind my back, again. The fiancé updated Instagram stories with vague quotes about overcoming betrayal. My dad posted a Bible verse about forgiveness he had clearly never read past the first line. And then came the thing that snapped the last thread of restraint inside me. A cousin texted me a link, a GoFundMe. Title: Help us rebuild our dream wedding after family betrayal. Goal: $10,000. Photo: Austin and his fiancée smiling in front of a lake, the same lakefront estate I had paid the deposit for. The description was worse. Due to an unexpected and hurtful loss of support from someone very close to us, our wedding plans have collapsed. Someone very close collapsed. My son was reading over my shoulder before I realized he'd climbed into my lap. He saw his uncle's face. He saw the words family betrayal. He looked at me, confused, hurt, searching my expression like a mirror that might give him answers. That was it. That was the moment everything inside me turned from hurt to clarity. I walked into the living room and handed the iPad to my husband. He stared at the screen in silence for a long moment. His face didn't contort, didn't flush, didn't erupt. His expression simply flattened into something cold, controlled, lethal. He set the iPad down, took out his phone, and said quietly, "All right, time to introduce myself to your family again." I didn't ask what he meant. I just stood there, heart pounding, watching the man who had always been calm in the middle of chaos take a breath and type. And then he joined the family group chat. For the first time in 8 months, his name appeared at the bottom of the screen. Jace: "Hi everyone, I'm home. I've been fully briefed on everything. Let's clear a few things up." Austin read it instantly. So did my dad. So did the fiancé. Before they could respond, Jace sent the next message. A cascade of screenshots. The venue contract showing my name, the cancellation confirmation, the cake refund, the email from the band, the receipts for everything I'd already paid, every single thing they'd pretended didn't exist. Then he finished with, "We will not be contributing another cent to this wedding. Any further attempts to guilt, manipulate, or publicly defame my wife or our children will be handled through legal channels." Silence. Actual silence. 10 minutes of it. And then Austin exploded. "You're hiding behind him, Rowan. This is manipulative. This isn't how families work." My dad tried to reclaim authority, typing, "This is not your place, Jace. You don't understand our family. This has nothing to do with you." My husband replied with 4 words. "Return the money now." And then, "Or we'll see you in court." The chat went dead. Austin's typing bubble appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then nothing. Later that night, my dad sent a private message to Jace, not me. "We can negotiate terms." My husband didn't negotiate. He sent one sentence: "Pay Rowan back in full, and don't contact her again." The dam didn't crack that night. It shattered. 2 days after Jace dropped those screenshots like precision-guided missiles into the family chat, the entire wedding, Austin's dream wedding, the one I had practically built for him, began collapsing in real time. And I didn't have to lift a single finger. On Wednesday morning, while I was pouring cereal for the kids, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something told me to answer. "Hi, this is Marlene from Willow Cove Estates," a woman said politely. "The backup venue your family recently booked?" I stiffened. Austin had booked the second venue under Daniel's name. Of course he had. But he hadn't scrubbed the system of my info as the original financial contact. Amateur mistake. "Yes," I said. "I just need to confirm payment. The balance was due yesterday, and we haven't received anything. We have 2 other couples waiting for this date. If payment isn't made today, we'll have to release it." I didn't hesitate. "If Austin or anyone from his party doesn't pay, you should release the date to someone else." She exhaled in relief. "Thank you for clarifying. We'll proceed." I hung up, put the phone down next to the cereal box, and watched my daughter draw stars in her milk with her spoon. I didn't warn Austin. I didn't warn his fiancée. I didn't warn my dad. Not out of spite, but because for the first time in years, their crisis wasn't my responsibility. By lunchtime, the venue had given the date to another couple. By evening, Austin tried calling me 5 times. I didn't answer. He texted long, frantic paragraphs full of blame, insults, accusations, every tactic he'd ever seen my father use. You've interfered enough. You're making this about you. This was supposed to be our day. I didn't reply. Jace did. Be an adult. Handle your own bills. Don't contact Rowan again. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. That night, a cousin called. One of the ones who thrives on family gossip the way plants thrive on sunlight. Did you hear? She said breathlessly. They canceled the wedding. I leaned back against the counter, half listening, half floating above the chaos like it was someone else's soap opera. They said it's because of logistical challenges, she continued. But everyone knows something happened. Her parents are furious. They've already spent thousands. She stopped to take a dramatic breath. Are you okay? I laughed, not unkindly, just honestly. I'm fine, because I was. I didn't want a spot in their circus anymore. Later that night, the official announcement appeared on Facebook. Due to an unfortunate series of logistical challenges, we are postponing our wedding celebration. Thank you for your support during this time. No admission, no truth, no accountability, just a polished lie to cover the wreckage. By morning, the messages started coming in. This time, not from the toxic trio, but from extended family members who had watched everything from the sidelines. Aunt Camille, I'm sorry. I should have spoken up sooner. Cousin Mary, we didn't know. We only heard Austin's version. A distant cousin I barely knew. I hope you never let them near your kids again. Some people only love you when it costs them nothing. I didn't reply, not out of bitterness, but because the messages weren't the beginning of healing. They were the epilogue to a truth I'd known for years. On Friday afternoon, after school pickup, I stopped at the grocery store for pasta and salad fixings. My daughter danced down the aisle. My son pushed the cart with exaggerated seriousness. That's when I saw her. My mom. She stood in front of the canned tomatoes, hair pulled back messily, wearing sandals even though it was cold. She looked smaller somehow, not fragile, just unburdened. When she saw me, she didn't hesitate. She walked straight over and hugged me. Not the tight, desperate kind, the soft kind, the real kind. We didn't say anything for a moment. Then she whispered, I told him I was done. I didn't need to ask who him was. She went on quietly, almost ashamed. He still blames you. Austin does too. But I don't. I see it now. She told me she was separating accounts, canceling things she'd been covering for my dad for years, starting therapy, relearning how to breathe without someone else's hand on her shoulder pressing her down. It feels like cutting a leash, she admitted, voice trembling. I didn't cry, but something in me softened. When she asked, Are you sure you're okay on your own? I just said, I'm not on my own. And she smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. That weekend, Jace and I loaded the kids into the car and drove to a little cabin he'd rented by the lake. Nothing fancy, no cell service, just pine trees, a small dock, and the crisp smell of winter on the water. My son skipped stones across the surface, counting each bounce. My daughter tried to catch frogs near the reeds. Jace wrapped an arm around my waist as we watched the kids from the shore. This, he whispered into my hair, is what a family feels like. For once, I didn't question it. I didn't shrink. I didn't brace myself for the next emotional blow. I didn't wonder if I was allowed to rest in this peace. I let myself believe it. Because he was right. This quiet, this safety, this laughter was the kind of family I had spent years trying to build with people who never wanted me to belong. The wedding was canceled. My father was silent. Austin had vanished from the group chat. The fiancé posted cryptic quotes like someone auditioning for a new audience. And I was done looking back. The message from my father came in on a Tuesday afternoon, right between work emails and a reminder that my daughter needed to bring a shoebox for a school project. 8 words. No punctuation, no warmth. We're done. Don't reach out again. Goodbye. I read it once, then again. I waited for the sting, for the guilt, for the punch of sadness I'd been conditioned to expect. Nothing came. I didn't feel numb. I felt clean, like someone had finally signed the last page of a document that had been sitting on my desk for decades. I showed the text to Jace while he chopped onions. He barely slowed down. Good, he said softly. Let him mean it. 2 days later, he got the voicemail. Jace, not me. My father's voice was different this time. Not angry, not booming, not dripping with certainty and control. He sounded tired, like a balloon that had been deflated too fast. Jace, listen, I don't want things to escalate. I think we should talk. Man to man, I'm open to discussing terms about the money. Terms. My father was still trying to turn a lifetime of wounds into a business deal. Jace didn't call back. He sent one text instead. Send Rowan the full amount. Do not contact her again. If you don't, we'll see you in court. No threats, no emotion, just the boundary my father never expected anyone to enforce. 3 days later, a check arrived in the mail. It was precise, down to the last cent I had ever spent for Austin's wedding. No note, no apology, no explanation. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at it. This was the ending of every argument I'd ever had with him. Every time I'd tried to earn his approval, every time I'd tried to impress him, every time I'd hoped he would finally see me. It all came down to a reimbursement, a refund for my suffering. And somehow, that made everything so much clearer. I deposited the check and never said a word. The original wedding date came and went. No photos, no announcements, no reposts. Austin's friends posted beach selfies, nowhere near the failed venue. His fiancée posted a glass of red wine with a caption, "Some endings are necessary." No ring in sight. I didn't ask questions. I didn't snoop. I didn't check their pages again. Their chaos no longer belonged to me. My mother stayed close in the quietest, gentlest way. She'd show up with groceries sometimes, or leave a bag of produce on the porch with a sticky note that said, "For the kids." She stopped wearing makeup to hide the tiredness. She stopped pretending Dad was a complicated man instead of a controlling one. One evening after dinner, she sat with me in the living room, her fingers wrapped around a mug of tea she hadn't touched. "It's peaceful here," she said, looking around. "I never had that in my own home." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She was finally choosing her own peace, too. We didn't talk about Dad. We didn't talk about Austin. We didn't talk about the wedding. For the first time in years, the silence between us wasn't strained. It was healing. That weekend, Jace and I took the kids on a little road trip to a lakeside cabin. Nothing fancy. Just space, trees, air, a fire pit that crackled and spit sparks into the dark sky. The kids roasted marshmallows, faces sticky and glowing from the firelight. My daughter found a frog and named it Pickles. My son counted how many stones he could skip, each one bouncing a little farther across the water. I sat beside Jace on a weathered log while he draped an arm across my shoulders. "This," he whispered, "is what a family feels like." And for the first time in my life, I believed it without arguing with myself. Because this family, this small circle of 4, didn't require me to buy my place, didn't punish me for existing, didn't treat my love like something to be extracted or measured, didn't make me shrink to fit inside their comfort. They didn't shame me. They didn't use me. They didn't abandon me when I needed them. They were just there, present, constant, loving without conditions. The cabin was silent, except for the fire cracking and the kids laughing in the distance. My chest felt light for the first time since, maybe ever. Dad was right about one thing. We're done. Only he thought it was a punishment, a door slammed shut in anger, a disowning meant to hurt me. But for me, it was release. It was clarity. It was freedom. Walking away from them didn't leave me alone. It left me with the only family that actually chose me. And that choice, quiet, steady, warm, was worth more than any wedding, any brunch, any apology I never received. They were done, and so was I.